There you go. Good afternoon, guys. Let's try and see how many people join. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us again in this weekly segment of Las Guerreras in Bilatina. I am Jamili Habib and I am the senior editor in Bilatina, and this has been a long week. But we are super excited for the conversation that we're going to have today. We're going to talk to Susan Ramirez de Arellano, whom we often call our godmother in journalism. She's a badass Latina. If you look for badass in the dictionary, Susan Ramirez de Arellano pops up. She has a lifelong experience, not only in the editorial room, but in the field, as a director of editorial. Susan Ramirez de Arellano, the best way that I can summarize her, if you wish, would be an institution in journalism. And I'm so proud and honored and humbled to be able to talk to her today. We're going to talk to Susan about her experience, about what it means to be a Latina and a woman in the journalism industry, in the media industry. And if someone has something to say about that, is Susan. Hi, Jefa. So with further ado, let's invite Susan. To our call. And let's wait and see when she joins. Remember, you can ask Susan any questions that you might have. Personally, I'm gonna tell a personal story. I met Susan in my previous newsroom where I used to work, and she's not only the kind of woman I wish to be when I grow old, but she's the kind of person that wants to share the wisdom. Yeah, we all love Susan. Susan has this ability to share wisdom, to be able to control a room and sit you down and tell you, this is how you get things done. I remember our first editorial meeting. Susan came like a hurricane through that sala, and she started asking us like, did you see this today? Did you read this today? She knew every single headline from every single media of everything that was going on that day. And the first thing that she asks is, what's your point of view? What's your take on it? And I think she's here. Right. Susan, where are you? I know, Jefecita. Just, it doesn't allow her. There you go.
Oh, Lord. There I am. I am not stupid with technology, except that sometimes I get a little bit confused. How are you, Yamili?
I'm about to cry. I'm so glad to see
Yeah,
you.
you look really good. I look like I look as tired as I feel. I just, we're doing this in English, right?
Yeah, we can mix this.
Okay. No, because I finished writing an article for Latino Rebels about Barbados and what it means for Puerto Rico. And I didn't think it would get as many likes as it did. It's almost going on 2,000. So that makes me really happy because I think that's why we do it, to write so that other people can either feel themselves identified or disagree with it, or but that they know that their voice is out there, or a voice that is familiar to them is out there. And I think that's why we do it, right? I mean, I don't think that I do it for the money or for the fame, because neither of them come with being a journalist, only in very few occasions. But I think this made me very happy.
I was
So,
I was just
mhm.
I was just saying the first day that I met you, the first editorial meeting that we had in the previous place where we used to work and where we
Iteration.
met. And and I was just saying that Susan Ramirez de Arellano is an institution in journalism, and we call you often, at least Giselle and I, we call you our godmother because most of the things that we learn in this is thanks to you. But it's really hard to summarize your story. Do you want to give it a go?
My story. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I'm from the Caribbean. Soy puertorriqueña, pero no solo soy puertorriqueña, soy caribeña. Um, I come from a family that is, none of the women had graduated. I think my sister, my cousin, and I were the first three that graduated. My mother and my aunts and my grandmothers were trained to get married. And I just, from the very beginning, and I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. Where did it come from? Why is it? Why is it the way I am? Why is it that the joy and passion of my life is writing, is literature, is communicating, and is in service of others? Because I truly believe journalism is meant to be in service of others. I believe journalism is meant to tell the stories that of those that can't tell their own story. But that sounds a little bit cliched. I just think journalism is human storytelling. Um, so I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I did not want to live the life of what I saw my mother and my grandmothers and my aunts live. I wanted to live a life like a man, with the freedom to make my own choices and to be kind of the daughter of my own destiny. And I fought hard for that. I went to study in the United States and in England. I spent 16 years in England. I came back to work for United Press International. When I was in college, I have an undergrad degree in international relations, and I have 2 masters because I wanted to keep on studying sociology, history, politics, everything that should make up a well-rounded story, should make up a well-rounded way of viewing an event or viewing a series of events, the why, the where, and the how, and what had happened before to bring it to where it
Mm.
was now. And, from there, I was hired by UPI. I went to cover the war in El Salvador. That's really where I cut my teeth, where I learned, I would say, how to smell a story. I learned that a story has to be seen up close. The field really teaches you uh, not only how to survive, but especially in a conflict zone, but why a story has to be this. and why a story has to be the human element and not only the facts and the of it. Like, that man killed someone because he had two guns. Why did he kill him? Where did he come from? What made him? The devil always lies in the detail, and that's what I learned in a conflict zone. So from Salvador, I was hired by ABC News, where I worked in the New York newsroom for 5 years. I had the privilege of working with Peter Jennings. Before that, at United Press International, I was very lucky in that I have had great mentors. And one of them was Lucian Carr. He put together the Beat Generation. That means Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and Burroughs. And it was me and Marie Colvin, who lost her life in Syria, doing what we thought we needed to do, which was to tell the stories of those that did not have the power or the scenario, the space to tell their own stories. And if whoever's watching this, if they've never read In Extremis, which is a story of Marie Colvin, I would encourage they do, because that is, in my mind, what a true journalist is all about. And some of my best friends lost their lives in war zones, even though I don't believe the story is worth it. But we were a tribe of people that believed that we could make a difference. And sadly, I don't know if that exists anymore. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I just don't see it at this point. But I'm sure it does. The thing is that the media is being overwhelmed by other voices. So after United Press International, I got hired by the Associated Press to build their Latin American and Caribbean television arm. And that's what I did for another, I think another 10 years. So I was based in London, and I traveled a lot. I helped open up the office in Cuba. I hired most of the initial cameramen because remember, APTN, which is Associated Press Television News, and Reuters is a video news agency. So what you're giving to the client is video that they can edit as they see fit. So I collected cameramen like fine jewels. Now the agencies have grown smaller. The budgets to cover international news have grown smaller. And the media has been circumscribed. It's being shortened. Which is a shame. I think that these are peaks and troughs, and I think that we will see a change. I think we will see a backlash. But that's my story. And then after that, I was hired by Univision to be the news director in Puerto Rico for 4 years. And that was my own personal Vietnam. That was a very difficult job, but I learned a lot, because Puerto Rico is a very difficult and very complicated story. But as a journalist, I think, and because I'm Puerto Rican, it's been one of the best stories I've ever covered. And when I went freelance 10 years ago, and I went back to what I love, which is writing, which is how initially I started in this career. I've been writing a lot about Puerto Rico. My latest story, which was in Latino Rebels, was about Barbados and Is Puerto Rico Next? And
if we go back a little bit, I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
And this might sound like a cliche question, but you've been a journalist in many different stages of history. How does being a Latina shaped those experiences for you? In the good and the bad. The good and the bad.
I think immensely, because I think es como Latina y como puertorriqueña y como ciudadana hija de una colonia. You have a different eye. You have a different point of view because you've lived different experiences. Therefore, your writing shows it. The way that you look at a story is very different than how an Anglo person would look at it, or say an American or a Brit or an Italian. I think the Spaniards have more in common with us, and not only because of the language, they have more of an international view, which the British also do. The Americans are more limited in that. The American journalism is quite insular. But as a Latina, it influenced me tremendously because that made the difference. That made the difference. I mean, my opinion, my point of view varied because I had seen other things. If you want to, I don't believe in journalism that that has no personal eye.
Yeah.
So that is objective. I've never believed in objective journalism because we're human beings, and as a journalist, you react as a human being. But but if you go back, I mean, I grew up, and I'm of a certain age. I grew up with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I grew up with the landing in the moon, the killing of Martin Luther King, Cerro Maravilla, La Revolución Cubana, Bahía de Cochino. Historically, I have another vantage point. So that really it made my eye different. I mean, I grew up singing, Juan Manuel Serrat, La Nueva Trova Cubana. So it's different. The Vietnam War influenced me tremendously because that's what I was seeing on the television, and Puerto Rican soldiers going to fight a war that we didn't even understand. And that Vietnam, the country, was more similar to us.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, today Vietnam, tomorrow us. So that it formed me as a journalist. And again, also, although a lot of women journalists would disagree with me, I write as a woman, and I write as a Latina woman, and I'm very proud of that. And I come from that background. So yeah, it's influenced me tremendously. It sets me apart in a way, in a good way and in a bad way.
And what about the obstacles?
Well, the obstacles, I think it's as a woman and as a Latina. I hate to go and say, oh my God, I was, discriminated against, or that, because you look at me, I have white privilege. I mean, I speak without an accent. I came from a family that could afford sending me to all these schools. I have 2 master's degrees. I mean, I went to Tufts, I went to BU, I went to London School of Economics. So I was palatable. The color of my skin and where I come from, it gave me white privilege, and that was very hard to understand and to accept, because I always wanted to be given the jobs that I've been given because of the supposed talent that I have or I don't have. Also, it's difficult because when you explain about Latin America, when you explain why we are the way we are, that we're not monolithic, that we're different, that, that the United States is not the avenging angel in Latin America, then you are qualified as the angry Latina, because you're the only Latina in the newsroom. When I started, I was the only one there, the only one. And diversification has not really happened, as they can talk a good game, but it hasn't happened. So yeah, I mean, being a Latina, sure. If I had been an American, my career maybe would have gone higher than it did, and maybe wouldn't have stopped when it stopped. I mean, stopped in the sense of a traditional trajectory of news director, vice president, or whatever it is that the next steps on the ladder are. But I decided that that's not what I wanted, that I was moving away from what the initial dream had been, or the initial cause, because I come from a tribe of journalists that had a cause, that had a mission. I think that's seen as quaint nowadays, but that's where I come from. I'm not 62 for nothing.
When did you see, or when were you finally went aware of this boom of Latino media in the United States, and how were you aware of that genesis, or was it something
I
that?
don't think there's been a genesis. I think there's been a cosmetic painting over, but I don't think there's been a genesis. I worry that a lot of the supposed Latino or Latina sites are headed by non-Latinos and non-Latinas. I worry that those that are headed by Latinos are men, and we have examples, and I'm not going to mention them, that are, that is an abusive relationship. I really don't think there's been that genesis. I think that the Latino and Latina sites still rinden pleitesía. They kowtow to the Anglo version of who they think we are. I'd say Latino Rebels tries to do a better job. I think there are other very progressive ones that now are coming into fore. I mean, something like La Brega 10 years ago would never have gone anywhere. So I think that our voices are starting to be heard, but I wouldn't call it a genesis. I think we need to have more courage in how we present our real voice. Now, having said that, you have to go into a room and pitch it. They've got to buy it. You've got to have the money. So this is also a business. But I would say that the more that Latinos do not go into traditional media in the United States and strike out on their own with their own voices, I think that would be a better path. Now, having said that, I know how difficult it is. And also the other thing is that when we want to put our voice on the table, it's not worth it to fight. It's not worth it to come in raging, con el machete en la mano, aquí voy yo. No, you gotta, like, rolling with the homies. You just gotta roll through it and find the place. I think we need more independent voices. I think we need more female Latina voices in media. Strong women that we can identify with. Look, I love J-Lo. I love Jennifer Lopez. Not to say that she's a journalist, but she really isn't. I mean, that's not all of us. I just would like to see more normal Latinas that aren't considered hot and aren't considered, and we're not allowed to age. Remember, Latinas are powerhouses in their families. Those that take decisions are the women. And I just think that we don't have enough voices, and it's not, God bless her, Sofia Vergara. She's done an amazing job in Hollywood, an amazing businesswoman, but we're not Sofia Vergara, we're not Jennifer Lopez, we're not Salma Hayek. And can you pinpoint one person that you can say, esa persona? No. The girl, the kid the woman, she's a woman now, is Selena Gomez. I really like her because she's trying to move out of her comfort zone. And when she's acting now in Only Murders in the Building.
I can see more faces in the entertainment industry than in the journalism industry, for example.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I mentioned them. In journalism,
if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have seen myself elsewhere. I mean, the closest thing would have been Rachel Maddow, and that's just because she's queer. But
no, but I think Rachel Maddow brings more than just being queer. I think Rachel Maddow brings her real self. You look at Rachel Maddow and you can imagine, bueno, yo me pudiera tomar una taza de café con ella y hablar, tú sabes, hablar mierda y cuestiones. La tipa es inteligentísima y no tiene miedo y no lo esconde. Tú ves a muchas mujeres latinas que esconden su inteligencia. Oye, señores, la sociedad latina es dirigida por la mujer. Lo que pasa es que estamos acostumbradas a escondernos atrás. Pero, ¿sabes? Tienes toda la razón. Most of the Latina female figures are in the entertainment business, and they're really not in journalism. I mean, you see the few Latinas that are out there, are all born in the United States, have very little understanding of América Latina y el Caribe. ¿Qué es esto? I'm not saying they're wrong because they, they were
No,
born
it's a
here.
different
And
perspective.
it's a different perspective. I'm not American. I've never considered myself American. And, no disrespect towards Americans. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm from the Caribbean. And I don't care what the colonial, message might be, or whether or not I have the passport. That is a mistake of history, in my opinion. But I'm not American.
Nowadays, a passport doesn't make you who you are.
Exacto, y I'm not American. Bueno, I am, porque soy del continente americano, pero yo soy caribeña, yo
Ya,
soy
esa es otra
latina, yo soy
discusión, esa es otra
puertorriqueña.
discusión.
Esa es otra discusión. Sí. Perdona, que estoy viendo. Pero nada, yo creo, I really truly believe that nowadays, if I were to start all over again, I would never go into traditional television. I would never go into traditional media. I would strike out on my own. But that's me, I have I have this wanderlust. I've always, I love the field. I love the field. And I would just get on a plane and go, or do my own website, or, and not a lot of people, especially Latinos, that want to go to the media. They want to become famous. That's not what the issue is. The issue is that you've got a story to tell, and you need to tell it, and you need to give to people a story that they can identify with. Not only that, that they can understand on a humane level what's going on. It's like we've lost that humanity, that eye-to-eye contact. You look at a story and you read it, and what is it that reaches out to you is what you've got to ask yourself. So I could sit here and be incredibly bitter and say, oh my God, me pasó esto, me pasó lo otro.